Good morning, my friends. It is Saturday, April 26, 2025. My name is Darren Gerdes. I'm just a professor trying to provide context in the war in Ukraine. I'm going to show you something quite unbelievable, and you'll understand what I'm talking about in just a moment. We'll start here, 1,110 Russians off the battlefield. Again, this has been kind of low. And what's interesting about this is that, it seems like Russia has tried to start an offensive. I mean, the number of attacks have gone up, but they've been thwarted. 8 tanks, which is twice the replacement value daily, 5 armored fighting vehicles, 70 artillery systems, 145 vehicles and fuel tanks. Now, if we look at Ragnar Goodmanson, his dashboard, which I'm starting to really dig because there's lots of things in it. He talks about, he gives little summaries as well. Engagements, casualties, and equipment losses stay above the 7-day average. Well, that's because the 7-day average also included these 2 days of ceasefire. Well, ceasefire as far as the Russians go, with almost 1,000 and then 670 on the full day of ceasefire. And so that's part of the 7-day average. So that's why it's lower. Tank, artillery, drone, and unarmored vehicle losses well above average. Airstrikes stay high but fewer. MLRS strikes. Ukraine strikes include 2 UAV control points and an improved ratio. Now, there's one other thing I want to show you here, and that is that, like I've been talking, this is his whole dashboard, and you can't quite see it. It's a little cut off on the side. We're going to go to Russian casualties tab here on the left, and here I'm going to zoom in. Okay, so it looks like the million mark has moved back because of the lower losses for the Russians in the last, I don't know, month or so. It's been a lot lower, especially in the last week. So this has steadily moved back over time. So I was predicting about like June 1st, and then I was predicting, wow, it could be as close as the end of May, but it's probably going to be closer to early June, somewhere along these lines, especially if that ticks back up. Okay, so Bowles has this, he poses this question: why doesn't Russia start assassinating senior Ukrainian generals with car bombs in Kyiv? It could be done in hours, or wipe out Zelensky and his cabinet. He could do it in minutes. Well, yeah, he's tried that before. The answer is Putin built his reputation on destroying T, not behaving like one. Now, do you believe that? I mean, this is unbelievable thing number one. I'll show you something else even more unbelievable later on. Like, he's saying that, and just a couple days ago, there was this. Overnight, 23 to 24 April, that's like just 2 or 3 days ago, Russia conducted a large-scale multi-axis, multi-weapon strike package against Ukraine utilizing long-range aviation bombers as well as Black Sea Fleet vessels and ground forces elements, predominantly targeting Kyiv. This was a massive attack. Now, how did they do it? Like, what was it? Now, first, they're targeting civilians. That's a war crime. That's a T, right? I mean, that's a definition. Okay, now, at the same time, how did they actually pull this thing off? Like, what were they doing? They were trying to confound the Ukrainian systems by overwhelming it. Russian forces launched at least 200 munitions, including one-way attack and uncrewed aerial systems, that's drones, and at least 10 ballistic missiles, both Russian, indigenous, and procured from the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. That's North Korea. Their premier Kodiak air-launched cruise missiles and Caliber land attack cruise missiles. This combination of munitions almost certainly sought to complicate and saturate Ukrainian air defense efforts. The Ukrainian Air Force reported intercepting 112 munitions, of that about 200 or so. That was a pretty good ratio. That's about as good as they were going to get, but that's what they were trying to do. And tell me again how he's not a T, right? Like, he just fights T. He's after those neo-Nazis. Okay. So here's what happened last night. On the night of April 25th to 26th, Russian T attacked Ukraine with missiles and drones. 0 out of 1 Onyx cruise missiles, 0 out of 2 KH-31P guided missiles, 66 out of 114 Shahed strike UAVs. Now, I know some of you who might be skeptical might be thinking, well, yeah, but he's using missiles to attack. This is a war. Yes, but it's T, and I don't use the word here for YouTube filters. It's T when it's actually attacking civilian populations. That's by definition. Kyiv region is currently under attack by deadly Russian drones with air defenses in operations. This was many hours ago, 2:18 a.m. my time. Man killed 11-year-old girl among 4 injured as Russian drones strike residential areas in Dnipro. Okay, you're hitting residential areas. That right there is the definition. New Russian strikes and raids in Kharkiv. A 14-year-old boy was injured during a night shelling from the Russian side. In Dnipro, during the night, explosions were heard in the city. 2 air alerts declared, and lasting 6 hours in total. Again, going after civilian targets. The city of Kropyvnytski was subjected to a massive nighttime drone raid by Russian forces, with at least 10 explosions recorded. Intense shelling continues in the Sumy region. Over the past day, there were 117 shelling incidents. According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Russia carried out 117 airstrikes on Ukrainian military positions and settlements over the past 24 hours or whatever it is. Okay, now, again, if it's on military positions, that's war. If it's on settlements, if it's on civilian population, that's the definition of the T that we were talking about here with this guy, right? But of course, he could just do this, but he's not, because he's made his reputation on destroying T. Sure he has. Okay, so what else has happened here? A Russian drone strike hit residential building in Tverka. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Near Kyiv, UAV rapidly dropped altitude and slammed into the city's housing sector. That's T, right? That's a definition. Okay, Pastor Mark Burns. As a pastor and advocate for peace, I strongly condemn Russia's latest barbaric missile assault on Kyiv. Now, this is Trump's top pastor, the guy he listens to most, to the degree that he listens. Okay. Now, he's going to say this at the end: the world cannot stand by idly. It's time for push for peace and hold Russia accountable for these war crimes. He's still saying we still need peace, right? But the difference is, after he visited Kyiv, after he visited Ukraine and got to see what happened in Bucha, he came back and started calling the Russians the bad guys. That's different. You can say, I want peace, I just want peace, but you got to call the bad guys and call out what's causing the disturbance of the peace, and that's Russia. Okay, high-quality satellite images from the 54th GRAU arsenal in Russia. This happened a few days ago. You can kind of see what it was and what it was after, what it was and what it was after. So this was a good hit, wiping out about half of its capacity, as estimates are. The Atesh resistance movement in Russian occupation claims to have destroyed a telecommunications module in Dagestan. This affected an aviation plant that makes components for MiGs and Sukhoi fighters. Okay, let's look at the battlefield. In the cross direction, Donetsk region, Russian invaders led 31 assaults. That low number is correlated usually to the low number that you're going to see over here of just a little over 1,100. So that seems about right. Okay, formula for a repelled attack. So these guys are driving, the Russians are coming in to attack, and FPV drones can see them coming, and then you have Stuna ATGM. You couple those two together and you can destroy these things fairly easily. What is this Stugna? It's a gun-launched anti-tank guided missile designed to be launched from a 100-millimeter anti-tank gun. And so, yeah, the ability to see the enemy coming is just so profound that that's what's causing the slowdown in the war. Okay, this Kupiansk front, Russian forces attempted an attack on quad bikes. So look at this. I mean, I'm just showing the still frame here on quad bikes. Like you don't even need to. I mean, there's a reason why you generally don't use quad bikes to go attack, and you can see these guys coming from. That's not smoke. That's like the dust that the quad bikes are kicking up. That hasn't been hit. So you can see these guys coming even if you don't have FPV drones. You can just like. So it's not the greatest idea. 59th Brigade repels Russian attacks. So here we are seeing drones coming to, well, that's going to be a bad day for these particular soldiers. Okay, now here's what the unbelievable thing number 2. Russia announced complete liberation of the Kursk Oblast and thanks Koreans. Okay, so Russian General Staff Chief Valery Gerasimov claimed that Ukrainian forces suffered 76,000 casualties during what he described as a failed operation in the Kursk Oblast. Well, let's see. First, they invaded into Russia. Okay, 76,000. I don't know if I can trust the number because I just don't trust the Russians. It could be, but I just don't trust their math at any time ever because they tend to lie all the time. And a failed operation, even if they were pushed out, if they pinned down these Russian soldiers or kept them in that region to relieve the pressure, I would hardly say that's failed. And remember, well, okay, let me keep going with this. Putin claimed full control over the Kursk region, congratulating his cannon fodder and remnants of North Korean imports for crushing these imaginary, well, he didn't say imaginary, but in crushing these neo-Nazis. I congratulate the entire personnel, he says in this speech, of all military units participating in the defeat of neo-Nazi formations that invaded Russian territory in the Kursk region. The Kyiv regime's gamble has completely failed. Actually, it was pretty successful in holding Russians up there and diverting them from the eastern side when they needed to relieve the pressure most. The enemy has suffered enormous losses, including among the most combat-ready, well-trained, and well-equipped forces of the Ukrainian units, including those armed with Western equipment. These are assault units, special forces. Undoubtedly, this will undoubtedly impact the entire line of contact. The complete rout of the enemy in Kursk border area creates conditions for further successful operations by our troops in other critical sectors of the front, bringing closer the defeat of the neo-Nazi regime, says Putin. Okay. Again, I just don't believe whatever he says. So maybe they're out. Perhaps, I don't know. Well, I'll listen to the AFU more readily. Gerasimov officially thanked the DPRK servicemen for their help in liberating the Kursk region. Obviously, without the help of the heroic North Koreans, the Russians could not show the results, which is an interesting way of looking at it. Like, you needed North Korea's help in order to do this? Now, it's interesting that after the mass elimination of DPRK units, in the Kursk region, no new arrivals of cannon fodder from the DPRK were noticed. Like, even North Korea was like, you know what, maybe we don't want to send more soldiers. Now, the upside of this is North Korea is now officially involved in the war against Ukraine. Remember, once upon a time, there's no North Koreans here. Well, now they're acknowledging it. Okay, this is why I just don't trust whatever Russia's saying. Expectations again was Kyiv in 3 days. The reality is defeat of the enemy in Kursk region after 3 years of Russian invasion of Ukraine. Master strategists. And how long were they in Kursk? Since last summer? Like, I mean, they've been there for a while. Okay. Seems Russia has also, in other news, lost a secret satellite. The secret Russian satellite, Cosmos 2553, linked to the nuclear weapons program in space, has malfunctioned, according to Reuters. Russia launched it just before the war in Ukraine began in February 2022. The U.S. believes that the satellite was part of plans to place nuclear weapons in space to destroy American satellites. The Kremlin, of course, denies this, but again, how good is their credibility? Okay, a Russian military helicopter also violated Polish airspace on 25 April. Poland's operational command reported it on X. Here it is in Euromaidan Press. Just a little bit about this. The Polish military officials reported that a Russian military helicopter from the Baltic Fleet breached Polish airspace on the evening of 25 April in what appears to be a test of Poland's air defense capabilities. Now, if you let that fester or you let that go and don't do anything about it, you get more of it. That's the way the Russians are. They're like toddlers, right? Toddler trying to press to see how annoying they can be to get the thing that they want. The operational command of the Polish armed forces said on X, the Polish military characterized the incursion as deliberate, saying that the nature of the incident suggests that Russia is testing the readiness of our air defense systems. Okay. And I never tire of watching these. This is destruction of Russian drones by the 12th Operational Brigade Azov. Now, one of the things that you'll notice is they generally attack them from above and from behind. So that means that you have to get your FPV drones out there and then turn around, make a U-turn, and come after them from behind in order to target them effectively where they can't see you. In other news, Ukraine takes control of Black Sea Russian cargo ship that transported 5,000 tons of stolen Ukrainian wheat from the port of Sevastopol in occupied Crimea at the end of 2024. This has been arrested, and the crew is detained by Ukrainian authorities on Black Sea waters. Remember how Russia had a Black Sea fleet and Ukraine with no navy kind of chased it away? And it's pretty amazing to watch. Okay. I want you to look at this young lady. This young lady is no longer with us after this missile strike in Kyiv. She was just 19. Her name was Sophia. And yesterday, actually a couple days ago now, a Russian missile and the world's indifference took her life in Kyiv. That's what's happening in Ukraine. Don't look away. Okay, small damage has big consequences. This is kind of a metaphor for what's happening in Ukraine and what's happening when we don't support them and what's happening catastrophically on the ground there and perhaps in Europe and, God forbid, world war. But we need to be aware that small damage can have big consequences. And finally, I'll leave you with this on that same theme. This is that explosion of the arsenal in Russia just a few days ago. Okay, although it looks bad, it's a great relief that I learned today that the ammo depot near Moscow wasn't blown up by Ukraine, but by humans' mistake from Russian soldiers that had a birthday party with candles that ignited the explosion. You believe that? Unbelievable, right? Well, so some of the other things that were said. All right, my friends, that's all that I have for you today. Thank you for your time, the likes, the shares, the subscribes, the coffees. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.